Good day everyone, I am Leslie Ann Emily Saga from Bachelor of Culture and Arts Education and I am going to report Lesson 8.4 Curriculum Response of Higher Education for Teacher Education Amid the Pandemic and Beyond. For now, let us have first the desired learning outcomes. First learning outcome, identify the implications of the occurrence of COVID-19 pandemic to teacher education curriculum. Second, propose adjustments to the curriculum during pandemic. And last, identify ways and means to address the curriculum vis-a-vis the situation that prevails during the pandemic. Let us proceed to the takeoff. The post-COVID-19 global health crisis has resulted to unprecedented challenges economically, socially, politically all over the world. More than just a health crisis, it has resulted to an educational crisis. When lockdown and enhanced community quarantines were declared across the world and in the Philippines, educational institutions were unprepared on how to establish academic continuity since students cannot anymore report to university. Continuing the academic engagement has been a challenge for teachers and students. To ensure continuity in learning, higher education institutions resorted to online learning. However, the shift to online mode of delivery has caused problems in terms of access and connectivity. Further analysis reveals that the difficulty in shifting to online modality is the unpreparedness of teachers to shift to flexible modality as the syllabus and learning activities are geared towards traditional delivery. Let us now proceed to our content focus. Traditional classroom to face-to-face delivery will pose a risk for communication. In other words, the new normal will soon prevail in the areas of business, commerce, industry, and education. Universities and educational institutions have to prepare for the new normal in teaching delivery and ensure academic continuity amid and beyond the pandemic. This dramatic disruption caused by the pandemic, it affects the delivery of education and health services in the Philippines. With school closures and challenges in the delivery of distance learning, students' learning losses are expected to be enormous. Now, let me leave you these questions. Do curricular programs need to be changed to support the trajectory towards flexible teaching and learning? And the other question is, do we need to modify the current curricula to make them flexible and resilient? To answer those questions, let us now proceed to the teacher education curriculum response to the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. First, we have curriculum modification. It is a process of making adjustment to existing programs in higher education, especially teacher education, in order to respond to the needs of the learners amid and post-pandemic. This is a process by which changes can be made to existing modules or programs at both undergraduate and postgraduate level study. However, teaching and learning during pandemic very likely comes with challenges related to instructional time. As a result, educators may feel that they need to find ways to reduce the amount of material they cover. Number 1. Focusing on the essentials. Mapping the needed and enduring outcomes in the recommended and written curriculum. The challenge during the pandemic is how to create a balance between relevant basic competencies for the students to acquire and the teacher's desire to achieve the entire outcome of the curriculum. They said that there is no ideal lesson formula. What important is that the balance of activities works to achieve the learning outcomes. To solve this challenge, teachers need to review the existing curriculum and analyze the outcomes of the course. The mapping of the course outcomes should be done to determine the needed and the enduring outcomes and which outcome should be emphasized. Now, what is the difference between needed outcomes and enduring outcomes? Needed outcomes are the desired knowledge, skills, and values that are required to learn higher concepts. They are defined as competencies that learners need for continuation to subsequent level of concept. They are considered as prerequisite competencies. This is a set of competencies that must be demonstrated before that requires foundational knowledge. How about enduring outcomes? Enduring outcomes are competencies that are necessary not just for succeeding in a certain topic but are useful beyond a single unit study. They are knowledge, skills, and values that have overarching applicability in real-life situations. These outcomes are permanent or lasting outcomes that we really treasure in actual. In curriculum modifying, enduring outcomes can be given emphasis. Identifying and mapping the needed and enduring outcomes can also shed light on overlapping so the teacher can decide which competency would be retained or merged. Here are some examples of outcomes taken from the simple syllabus in arts appreciation. In box A, existing statement of outcomes in syllabus. At the end of the 3-unit course, the student should be able to, number 1, mount an art exhibit or concept development, post-production, marketing, documentation, and critiquing. And number 2, create their own works of art and curate their own production of exhibit. While in box B, modify the statement of outcomes to cover the essentials. At the end of the 3-unit course, the student should be able to, number 1, create their own work of art through visual production or exhibit. The two outcomes from box A and outcome from box B, are very much essential. As you have observed, there are two statements from box A, but in box B, there is only one statement. This is because the two statements from box A has been merged into one essential and enduring outcome. Here is another example of unit outcomes from the course Purposive Communication in the General Education curriculum. In box A, we have the current unit outcome for purposive education. Number 1, determine culturally appropriate terms, expressions, and image sensitive to gender, race, class, and etc. This is a needed outcome. And number 2, determine cultural and intercultural awareness and sensitivity in communication of ideas. And this is a needed outcome also. In box B, we have modified the statement of outcome as essential, and it is only one. Number 1, use culturally and interculturally appropriate terms, expression, and images in communication of ideas. Like the first example, the statements from box A has been merged like the statement in box B. These two examples shows how learning outcomes can be reduced during the times of pandemic by putting two together into one as an essential. Let us now proceed to number 2, rearranging the college course offering. This is another way of modifying the curriculum during the pandemic. Example of this is the theories and concepts that can be delivered online may be offered in the first 2 years. While face-to-face delivery is not yet possible due to the risk of infection, the laboratory-based field study and practicum courses can be offered later when face-to-face modality is already feasible. Number 3, we have offering of effective or cognate courses that relate to the pandemic. In the global health crisis, it is imperative that the curriculum be adjusted by offering courses that are needed to survive and thrive amidst the challenges of the pandemic. Due to the health crisis that we are facing, courses offered for the students need to be adjusted, but not only the curriculum but also the teacher and students. We must cope up to the new environment. Some of the proposed effective courses that are deemed essential, especially in the teacher education program, are the following: change management, disaster risk management, flexible learning and teaching strategies, resilient education, remote teaching, health and mental wellness, instructional materials development for blended instruction, active learning principles and practices, and psychosocial support during crisis. Number 4, we have modifying the taught curriculum. Considering the face-to-face modality is not feasible, teachers may consider flexible distant learning options like correspondence teaching, module-based learning, project-based, and television broadcast. It is challenging to figure out how to save instructional time and still be consistent on the way of your teaching. So materials and curriculum need to be modified to account for resource disparities in remote environments. Due to our current situation, as you could experience, students are offered to have modular class and online-based class, though teachers are still flexible to reach the goal and expectations. For learners with internet connectivity, computer-assisted instruction, synchronous online learning, asynchronous online learning, collaborative e-learning may be considered. Like what we are having today, we conduct online classes and meeting through Google Meet or Zoom call. Activities were sent via emails and chats and even in educational applications like Google Classroom. Number 5, we have modifying the assessed curriculum. Adjustments on the assessment measure can also be considered amid the pandemic. There is a need to limit requirement and focus on the major essentials like case scenarios, problem-based activities, and capstone projects. Addition to the reason that we are in the K-12 curriculum, we really need to limit requirements and focus on problem-based activities and the like because these activities can be used in our daily lives. Authentic assessment have to be intensified to ensure that competencies are acquired by the learner. In the process of modifying the curriculum amid the pandemic, it must be remembered that initiatives and evaluation tasks must be anchored on what the learners need, including their safety and well-being. Let us now proceed to letter B, curriculum consideration. And under curriculum consideration, we have the first, the context of teaching and learning. Since the World Health Organization or the WHO has declared a pandemic time in March 2020, everything has changed, including people's way of lives. The havoc the COVID-19 has brought in reclaiming more than 10 million lives in unprecedented in human history. Education as a human right has to continue despite this pandemic, thus curriculum delivery appropriate to context should be given a serious thought by educators and teachers. Let us proceed to the context. By the nature of the virus, the WHO issued fundamental guidelines for everybody to follow to avoid its contamination and transmission. These are as follows. Number 1, we have to wash our hands frequently with soap and water. Avoid touching your eyes, your mouth with unwashed hands. Second, we have to wear our face mask. This will be provided as a personal protection that no droplets due to coughing or talking of a transmitter will be passed to another person. Third, we have social distancing or keep distancing. Social distancing or keeping away from another person at least 1 meter away will break the circuit of transmission. And of course, avoid going to crowded areas and places. Number 4, we have to practice health etiquette. When coughing, cover your mouth or cough on your sleeve, not in the person in front of you. Number 5, do exercise. As I observe oftenly, Zumba dancing is one of the physical exercises that is commonly done during this time of pandemic. Physical exercises, whether indoor or outdoor, when allowed is recommended. Last, number 6, we have to eat healthy foods that will build our immune system. We have to eat fruits, vegetables, and fish, of course. During this time of pandemic, families provide mini gardens in their front and backyard where vegetables were planted like pechay and mustasa and many more. Besides, these are healthy, they can save money in buying their foods. In short, the general health protocols to be followed include the following: stay home, keep distance, wash hands, and wear face mask. With the general rules given, it is really impossible to conduct face-to-face classes, and the usual classroom scenario can never be the same during this time. Schools are open, but students and teachers are not allowed to report physically. The current education and perhaps the future new normal shall happen anytime and anywhere, as in Education 4.0. Hence, in this situation, everything is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, or VUCA. Volatile is the change in unexpected or unstable and may be of unknown duration. Just like this recent time, we don't know when face-to-face classes will start, and this is really an unexpected challenge to every one of us. Uncertain, unclear about the present. We are lacking of information, but we are aware to the cause and effects. Changes in our lives are possible. Complex, multiple key decisions. Let us proceed to number 2, the learner and the teachers. College students, like all other students, are diverse in reference to their readiness to learn under the pandemic. Like what we experience, not all of us are ready to learn under our current situation. Some are ready, some are not, some are just going with the flow. Teacher education institutions are spread all over the country, and there are more than 1,200 of these institutions. Students come from diverse backgrounds based on geographical location, economic status, school in attendance, and many more. Likewise, the teachers are also coming from the similar contexts. Because of this diversity, we really admit that shifting face-to-face learning to online and flexible learning is difficult for both learners and teachers. Thus, the choice of delivery must be appropriate to the condition. Let us make the geographical location as an example for this. There are students from far-flung areas that they couldn't access to internet. There are also students lacking of gadgets like mobile phone and laptop that are usually used in online classes. Number 3, we have appropriate teaching delivery during the time of pandemic and beyond. So the question is, what kind of appropriate teaching delivery must the teacher use to share knowledge to students? So this is a very difficult question to answer because there are several factors to consider aside from the learner and the teachers. Here are the examples. First, what if your students have no internet connectivity or you don't have internet connectivity? Here are some ways. Number 1, use of printed self-learning modules or learning packets which are distributed through means that will follow social distancing, can be picked up from strategic distribution centers. So examples for this are the module ones. Number 2, in places with no risk of COVID-19, a group of not more than 10 students may meet face-to-face, but health protocols should be followed. Social distancing, using of face masks, washing of hands, and others, of course. What if there is a limited internet connectivity? Here are some ways. Number 1, asynchronous learning. A teaching delivery where students are doing their work independently based on what has been instructed online by the teacher. Or they can access online learning at different times. This will allow flexibility in the learner's schedule. They can learn on their own pace. Students are provided with learning materials or packets which may either be printed or recorded tutorials. Open educational resources or OERs will be provided. What if there is the excellent internet connectivity? Here is the examples or some ways. First, synchronous learning. Real-time teaching and learning using platforms like Zoom, Facebook, Messenger, Google Meet, or Google Classroom. This is also called remote learning. Teacher prepares an instructional guide like lesson plan where most of the delivery will be lecture or demonstration. There is a very little interaction at the end of the session through question and answer or Q&A. Bisynchronous learning can also be followed by an asynchronous learning. In short, there are 5 strategies used for pre-service teacher. First, focusing essentials. Second, rearranging of the college course offering. Third, offering of elective or cognate courses. Fourth, modifying the taught curriculum. And lastly, modifying the assessed curriculum. And there are 3 process of modification curriculum considerations. First, the context of teaching and learning. Second, the learners and the teachers. And third, appropriate teaching delivery. So now, let us proceed to the take action. The question is, what are the emerging challenges in the flexible teaching and learning modality during the time of pandemic? And my answer is, the challenges that emerged in the flexible teaching and learning modality during the time of pandemic are as follows. First, adjustments is made by teachers in teaching and learning strategies. Second, difficulty in complying with the learning activities. And third, limitation of connectivity. Second question is, what would institutions do to ensure curriculum continuity in teacher education? My answer is, institutions should ensure curriculum considerations where the context of teaching and learning must be given great considerations for teacher education to continue. Here are the self-reflect activities. So that's all, and thank you. I hope you learned a lot in my report. Thank you for watching.